What if the one thing you've been protecting your entire marriage is the very thing quietly pulling it apart after 60 years? Most people over 65 believe that if you've stayed together this long, you've already done the hard part. You've survived the stress, the bills, the kids, the sacrifices. So whatever is left should be easier, calmer, more peaceful. But then why do so many long marriages feel strained, distant, or silently heavy in the later years? There's a gap in the story no one explains, and until you see it, you won't understand why couples who lasted decades can still feel like something important slipped away. Let's go back to the beginning. In early adulthood, marriage is about building. You're solving problems together, creating a life. There's urgency, shared goals, constant motion. Communication happens, but it's often functional. What needs to be done replaces how do you feel. It works because life is loud enough to cover the silence, but something subtle starts forming. Patterns. Small things left unsaid, conflicts avoided, emotions postponed. At 25, it feels harmless. At 35, it feels normal. But research in long-term relationship studies shows that unresolved emotional patterns don't disappear. They stack quietly. Now move into the 40s. Life shifts. Careers stabilize or plateau. Children grow up or move out. The noise begins to fade. And here's where something uncomfortable begins. You start hearing what was always there. The emotional distance you never addressed. Instead of deepening communication, many couples rely on routine. Same schedules, same conversations, same assumptions. According to American relationship and aging studies, couples in midlife often reduce meaningful emotional conversations by nearly 30% compared to earlier years. But here's the twist. They don't notice it happening because nothing is wrong enough to force change. So the pattern continues. Now we arrive at the shift after 70. The one most people never prepare for. Time slows down. There's more quiet, more space, fewer distractions, and suddenly, you're face to face not just with your partner, but with decades of unspoken things. This is where the mistake becomes visible, not as a single moment, but as a feeling, a sense that you don't fully know each other anymore, a distance that can't be explained easily, a habit of avoiding real conversations because it feels uncomfortable or too late. And here's the hardest part. Many couples believe the mistake was something big. An argument, a decision, a specific moment. But in most cases, the real mistake was much smaller and repeated thousands of times. It was choosing comfort over honesty, avoiding difficult conversations, assuming understanding instead of building it. That's the quiet mistake that haunts many long marriages. Now, let's talk about the breaking point. It often doesn't look dramatic. It shows up as silence during dinner. As separate routines in the same house. As conversations that stay on the surface even after decades together. And then something happens, a health scare, a loss, a moment that forces reflection. And suddenly, there's a realization. We spent 60 years together, but we stopped really connecting somewhere along the way. This is where cause and effect becomes clear. The avoided conversations become emotional distance. The lack of vulnerability becomes loneliness, even with someone next to you. And here's the fallout. It affects more than just the relationship. Studies from U.S. health surveys show that emotional isolation in older adults is strongly linked to higher risks of depression, cognitive decline, and even heart disease. So this isn't just about feelings. It's about health, longevity, and quality of life. Now here's where many people try to fix it and fail. They try to be nicer. They avoid conflict even more. They fill time with distractions, TV, routines, small talk. But those fixes don't work because the problem isn't conflict. The problem is lack of real connection, and avoiding it only deepens the gap. Now here's what took many couples decades to finally understand. The strongest marriages in later life are not the ones without problems. They're the ones where both people stayed emotionally engaged. Even when it was uncomfortable, they didn't avoid hard conversations. They leaned into them. They didn't assume they understood each Other dot they kept learning each other dot and that changes. Everything dot now bring this to today dot right now. Millions of couples in the United States are living this exact pattern. Decades together, but slowly drifting apart in ways that feel small, until they don't dot. So, what can you do starting today? First, ask one real question you've been avoiding, not about schedules or tasks, about feelings, thoughts, or something deeper. Start the conversation that matters. Second, listen without fixing. Most people listen to respond. Instead, listen to understand. That alone can shift years of distance. Third, create one shared moment daily. It doesn't have to be big. A walk, a quiet conversation, a few minutes of real presence. Now, a clear warning. Time does not automatically strengthen relationships. It only magnifies whatever patterns already exist. If connection is missing, time will not fix it. And here's something to think about. What if the biggest regret in long marriages ain't what you did wrong, but what you never said, never asked, never shared? That question stays with people. If this made you pause, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and drop a comment with one conversation you know you need to have. And if you want to understand the next hidden factor that shapes happiness after 70, the one most couples never see coming, make sure you subscribe.